Station J Rock Houston, and This is Metal. And I should share with everybody that it looks a little different today. My regular co-host Joe Lawson was able to do a show, so we got a good mutual friend to me and Joe. Jammie Bosstel is going to be our guest host. First time we've ever done this in the history of the show. And also we got Michael J. Miller from the band MJM. Last time I talked to you, Michael, I got to say, I love that branding. You know, did that take you very long to kind of come up with MJM? Because I mean, it is very fitting.
I like that. Thanks for the compliment. You know, it was kind of funny. I've known my own name all my life, but I never thought of using it. I said to my producer once I decided to go solo, I was going through tons of different names and looking through books for all sorts of weird names and whatever. And he said, "Why don't you just call yourself your own name, MJM? That's who you are."
It's amazing
I thought, well, geez, that's a great idea. Yeah. And so it stuck, and 20 years it's been MJM.
Yeah, and Jammie, you have a similar story.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's kind of what happened to me too.
Yeah,
I had recorded a bunch of songs in the pandemic, and some guys came along, wanted to form a band. And they're like, "What do you call this?" And I had some names picked out, and they're like, "No, let's just call it Bosstel." And I was like, "Really? It's weird. It's weird when it's your own name, you know?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels that way, but Bosstel sounds cool. Take it from me, it's cool.
Hey, there you go. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I like it.
And Michael, let me ask you, because you mentioned you're working on a new single. So is that kind of your current model? Like you're releasing a new song each time? Or are you working towards a full length? What's your plans with that?
Well, I've traditionally been an album type of guy. I grew up with albums, and every artist I look at, I always look at what their contribution was as an album, because it's really their time era that you recognize the band for all the songs on that album, the artwork, the pictures, and all that. So I really still am going to continue making albums, but the economics of music have changed.
Sure.
Where right now people are they're going to Spotify, they're jumping from this song to that song, whatever, and half the time people don't even know who they're listening to.
Yeah.
So it's a singles economy right now, dealing with the streaming world, and to put songs out, the way it works with Spotify, if you release singles, you can feature them and promote them differently. If you release a whole album at once, you can only feature one song on Spotify. So that's like a super hassle. So you're even if you do have a full album, you're better off now to release them one song at a time, or the rest of it may get lost in the shuffle and not get the same push with the album.
And I think last time we talked a little bit about this, Michael, because you really are a gifted songwriter to me. And what I love about your music is it's hard to kind of pigeonhole you. You got a little bit of a metal element, a little bit hard rock to what you do, but it's kind of a little bit of everything. I mean, you're one of those songwriters that it's hard to pigeonhole you, I think.
Well, that's kind of good too. I will say that I'm kind of in the middle between old traditional metal and new metal.
Yeah.
The one thing I'm missing from the new metal is kind of the metal singing, or whatever. Yeah, that's the one thing I don't go for too much. I did have I'll have a bit of it in a few songs here and there, but the songs will always continue to be mostly vocal and heavy, right?
I mean, everybody has different tastes, but I agree with you, Michael, right there. I mean, I like to, at least when I'm listening to music, be able to understand what the guy's singing,
Yeah, me too. Yeah. It helps.
And so, Jammie, let me ask you, prepping for tonight's interview, I sent you some of Michael's music. Did you get a chance to check that out?
I did. Yeah, I like Humanoid. Humanoid's pretty awesome. That's like you said, you're adding like modern elements in there. Yeah. I can hear that. And then the Mind Warp was good, instrumental for sure. Death Crimes reminds me of Priest. It sounds like a Judas Priest song.
I've heard that many times. Yeah,
I bet your voice kind of sounds like Rob Halford on that song. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then the last instrumental with the acoustic was really good too.
That's a
Yeah.
beautiful song. Yeah, it really is. It really takes you places. It puts you on a little bit of a trip. It really tweaks your emotions with the
Yeah.
chord changes that happen, right?
Yeah,
And
that's the great thing about recording stuff by yourself. You're free to do. You could do one song pop, you could do one song metal, you can do an instrumental, you can do whatever you want. You know, there's no limits.
Yeah, yeah. I actually started MJM with totally all instrumental, believe it or not. That's
Oh
what,
wow, okay.
yeah, I had a ton of instrumental songs written, and the singer in my last band, he was really critical about uh, instrumental songs, and he didn't want to have anything to do with them. And you know, yeah. So there was one instrumental song on the last album with that band, and then I just wrote a bunch of instrumentals before I even knew that the band was called MJM.
mhm.
Then I started writing vocal songs too, right?
Yeah, I think that's what
Yeah.
makes you such a gifted musician and a songwriter, Michael. Because I mean, let's talk a little bit about the fact that people can go on YouTube, they can check out all your songs, but and they are all a little different. But just to kind of touch on this point too, is I love the fact we talked about this last time that you also got an album full of instrumental stuff, and instrumentals are very strong in their own right. And typically, when you write an instrumental piece of music, um, and you have a whole album worth of it. It's hard to keep people's attention. A lot of times they listen to one or two songs. But your stuff is it's just it keeps, at least I can say, kept my attention. I listened to most of the stuff all the way through. And what's interesting is typically I prefer music like a lot of people that have words and lyrics, but it didn't really seem to matter. It was just kind of all around good music.
Well, that's very nice. Thanks very much, Jay.
Yeah,
I try to, when I write an instrumental, I try to let my guitar be the voice of the
sure.
song.
Yeah,
You know,
For
I
sure,
try to write
man. Yeah.
signature licks that kind of come back to you like a chorus would, or
Yeah.
a memorable line. I try to put that in the song so there's something that people can remember and follow and look forward to hearing next time it comes up.
Yeah,
yeah,
you got melody in your songs for sure. And if you did, even if you took the vocals away from some of the songs, you can tell it's still, if it still moves you without vocals there, that's a good sign of a good song for sure.
Right. Cool. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah. And I think
songwriting. It's kind of funny that the new song that we're working on right now, um, contrary to a lot of stuff that I've written, it's almost a three-chord song, except there's a fourth chord that comes up here and there, right?
yeah,
But yeah, and it's taking like a long time to perfect this three-chord song.
yeah.
We've been working on it for 8 months, believe it or not. And the mix, it's starting to sound really good. It's being mixed right now, and it's going to be ready for mastering in the next week. But it's funny how a three-chord song can take so long to really be everything I want it to be. And the better the mix becomes, the more I was starting to hear things that I could improve on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So there's been a
Do you
lot
have
of
your
new.
own,
Go
do
ahead.
you have your own studio?
I do have my own recording studio. That's where I always do my songwriting, but I'm recording it at my producer's studio because he has like Neve gear and the fancy vintage
The
soft.
big board stuff, huh?
Yeah, the
Okay.
big board stuff with yeah, um geez, LA2s and whatever.
Are you using a real drummer or are you using program drums or
Oh, it's a real drummer. Yeah, we use
okay,
a real drummer. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
okay.
But we do have the drum editing capabilities in the software if there's anything we want to change.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, your recordings sound great too. The production sounds good, man, for sure.
Thanks very much. And I'm looking forward to this new album. It's going to have a different texture to it. You'll notice with the first song as it comes out, because actually the last album with Humanoid and whatever was actually recorded in my studio here.
Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, so it's doing the new album in the other studio. I think is going to be a nice breath of fresh air and another change. People will hear they'll hear a difference, right?
Mhm.
Not that I want to compare one as being better
Sure,
or the
sure,
other.
sure. I
Yeah.
guess the word for that is progression. In other words, every time you do a new song, a new album, you hope doesn't sound like a carbon of what came before. You want to hear
Oh
somewhat of a
yeah.
Very well put. And that's, I think I'm going to accomplish that by doing it in the other studio.
yeah. And by doing it this modern way, where in the old days, a band would go in the studio and probably half the album would already be written, and a lot of times, like you look at those great Alice Cooper albums that Bob Ezrin produced,
Yeah.
they go in there with a concept, and okay, these songs have to all sound like they belong in the same album. But doing it kind of the modern way, that's not necessarily as important. You can do a power ballad, you can have a rock anthem, you can you know have maybe a country sounding tune if you want, on
Yeah.
the same album.
Yeah. It's really hard to say. Like I have hundreds of songs written
Yeah.
and lots to pick from. So, and I have hundreds of more ideas where I've caught little snippets on my phone. I can be playing my guitar and all of a sudden I'll get a neat riff and I'll just turn on a voice recorder
Yeah.
and capture it, right? So I've got hundreds of those in here that I know that as soon as I'll listen to it, I'll be able to turn it into a song, right?
Yeah.
So it's I've got a lot of variety of stuff to choose from.
And so, Michael, let me tell you, obviously you're using an outside producer. What do you think the benefits? I mean, producing your own stuff versus working with an outside producer.
I really think that it's hard to produce yourself.
Yeah, be objective, huh? Yeah.
It really is. You get stuck at certain points. I really like working with a producer because he'll mention things that I won't have thought of.
Yeah.
Sometimes he may suggest things, or we may try things that don't work out, and I'll say, well, after listening to it for a few weeks, I don't know if I really like what happened here. Let's change it back to the way it was, or let's change it into something new from what you had come up with. But all in all, as a team, the two of us seem to really get from one level to the next by bouncing the ideas back and forth. And it's a case of being able to interpret what my producer says to me and turn it into something that I can play musically that is what he was thinking of, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's a really added benefit. And also he is as well as a producer, he's the engineer, right? So he's also making sure everything we do sounds really good as we're working on it, right?
Yeah. And it's cool that you allow yourself to be open to that kind of critique or suggestion from the outside producer, because you talk to musicians so many times and they're so stuck in their way of I don't want anybody coming in and tweaking this is my song. I know how I hear it in my head. I know how I wrote it.
Oh, for sure. That's a standard way of thinking for a lot of songwriters. And I will admit that I understand the feeling because the song it is your baby. You made it,
right?
You spent a lot of time to get it to the point where it sounded like a good song that I'd even want to present to my producer to produce.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty touchy on it myself. When he picks on something and says something about a section, I'll be, well, what do you mean? What's wrong with it, right? And he'll have to tell me, well, how about this instead? And then I'll kind of think about it and go, well, okay, I'll give it a shot. And is this what you're thinking? He goes, yeah. And I say, yeah, okay, I can do that. I think that'll work. It did take some adjusting, to tell you the truth, working with a producer in a positive, collective way instead of a negative force kind of. You've heard many cases where artists did not liking working with a producer or reject their ideas or just be closed-minded. The song can't really develop any more than the artist has it is if you do it that way. But when we keep an open mind, you have to trust the person that you're working with too. You have to know that they have a good musical mind.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, and how about you, Jamie? When you record, how do you feel versus working, producing stuff yourself versus working with an outside producer?
I've worked with Corey Lowry. I've worked with Chris Steinmetz, some pretty big names, and I learned, hey man, they know more what they're doing than I do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the artist, I'm the writer. They're skilled at that. I'm gonna trust them. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
Sometimes
no problem. I have no problem taking any criticism or, you know, that to me, the easier you are to work with, they're going to want to work with you more down the line too. You know.
Well said. Perfectly said. You're right.
Sometimes they know, you know, like even 40 years later, you look at a band like Rat, their biggest hit, the song Round and Round. I've heard the guys talk over years that, you know, when they went in the studio, they were recording that album. That was like one of the last songs written for the album, and they didn't even know it was going to be hit. The producer was one that kind of honed in on that song and said, you know, I think there's something there. We just got to work on that a little more. And sure enough.
Right. For sure. You never know, man. You know?
That's a really good example of what a producer can do for a song where you said it was the last one they even thought of recording.
Yeah.
And he turned it into that.
Same story like with Def Leppard's huge hit, Pour Some Sugar on Me, the last thing they wrote for that album. And Joe Elliott's talked about we were almost done, but we didn't have the song. And then we had no idea it was like the second single from the album. The album wasn't kind of stalled at first. And then once they released Pour Some Sugar on Me, it blew up all over the place.
Oh, I've got this saying, man, song is king, you know, set your ego aside, or what you feel strongly, what you may feel strongly is right, could very well be not right for the song itself. Yeah. The song is king, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I always look at what's right for the song, what's right for the listener, not necessarily about you as the artist, what you like, but what's right for the listener, you know?
Number one, that's right. You have to think about the listener. They're not musicians,
right?
So they can do without a million chord changes and a zillion lead notes.
I'm sure you could write a Dream Theater opus, you know, that you would enjoy, but somebody else would be like, "Dude, what is this?" You know?
Yeah.
I ain't got 7 minutes to listen to your song.
So let me ask you, Michael, when you go to record something in the studio, like where you are now. Do you always bring your own gear, or sometimes are you like, oh, I think I'll try this guitar over here and see what this sounds like? Or how strict are you with like wanting to use your own equipment versus what's in the studio?
Well, I've got quite a variety of sounds I do have here, but fortunately, I also work at a huge music store, so I can get any gear I want.
Yeah.
And, it's there, and there's been times actually on a couple songs on the MJM4 album where the producer said, you know, I think this guitar part would sound better if it was played on a 335, which I don't own. And I had to bring one home from the store. And well, when he said that, I thought, he's right. I'd love to hear this played with a 335, that boxy kind of wooden, you know, hollow body electric tone. And I plugged it in and played the riff, and I went, this is going to sound great. And certainly that's how I got that tone, a nice thick bluesy tone on Since You've Been Gone with a 335, which was originally played on my Strat, which sounds more aggressive, right? It has different texture to it.
It's interesting to having you guys both on at the same time, you know, inviting Jamie on as tonight's guest host, because you guys write and perform similar type of music. And you both are singer guitar players. I was curious. I want to ask both of you this. Do you think of yourself first as like a guitar player, maybe because that's what you start out, or do you think of yourself primarily as a singer songwriter?
I don't know, man. It all started for me just writing acoustic songs, sitting around in the living room on the couch or whatever, bored, and I would just sit there and play guitar and hear melodies in my head, and then the singing would come. But usually the music's written first for me. You know, most of the time I'll write the music first, I'll riff out something, and then words just pop in my head, and then it becomes a song.
So you usually start off with like a riff, and then the words kind of, like you say, come to you?
Usually I haven't really ever written a song where the vocals. No, really.
It doesn't work. You know, you can put it this way. If if a poet came up to you and said, I've got these lyrics here, and you say, well, how are the chords supposed to go? They won't have any idea. And then he could hand that poetry or lyrics to 10 different songwriters, and he would get 10 different songs, right?
Right.
For sure.
And,
So I operate very much the same as you, Jammie. The music comes to me on my guitar, and I'll hear usually I'll have a vocal melody with no words. I call it an Aztec vocal.
Yeah, you mumble, right?
Yeah, just a mumble and and like maybe note changes and a melody, and you can hear the notes that are going to match. And you put the words to it later. And frankly, in the Beatles, what was that 6-hour thing they had?
Give Back or something like that, yeah.
Oh, on Disney? Yeah,
the older one, the Beatles, geez, it was a 6-hour thing.
Yeah, I know what you're
Hard
talking
Day's
about.
Night?
Geez.
Hard Day's Night.
No, not that
There was one
movie.
Ron Howard did. I think that's the one you're talking about. Ron Howard directed it or something.
Yeah, I think it was actually. There's this section where John Lennon is working with Phil Spector and Yoko in the studio, and they see kind of a bum type of looking guy lying under a tree out in John Lennon's front yard.
Sure.
And they said, what's this guy doing out there in my front yard? Let's go ask him. And they get out of their studio and they walk to their front door, and they open the door, the three of them, Phil Spector, John, and Yoko, and they say to the guy, hey, come here, what are you doing? And so the guy comes up to the door, and John says, well, what are you doing hanging out in my front yard? And the guy just says, well, I wanted to know what you meant when you said this in this song. And John goes, what do you mean? What did I mean when I said this? To tell you the truth, I don't care what I say or what I write. I could be talking about when I go to the bathroom, or I had bacon and eggs for breakfast. It's what I said. He says, I just write the song and then I stick words to it. That's from John Lennon. Write the song first and then just stick words to it.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back all the way back to the history, look at the history of rock and roll. I mean, there's the Beatles, there's Elvis, there's Chuck Berry. I mean, everybody has their roots, and even going back to Elvis, I mean, he really is the king of rock and roll, because he's the guy who really started it all. But he also did gospel. And I was having a conversation with someone. Can you imagine if the Beatles didn't even ever exist? I mean, how different everybody would be writing songs.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, did you catch that movie called Yesterday?
No,
the movie called You gotta watch it.
You told me about that last time. And somebody
hilarious.
Yeah.
To wake up one day and the Beatles don't exist. They're not in your collection. No one's ever heard of them.
Somehow you wrote all those songs.
Yeah, you start playing their songs and people go, wow, man, that's great. You wrote that? And he's going, well,
okay.
No. And they're saying, well, I've never heard this before. Meanwhile, it's a song like Yesterday or Hard Day's Night or whatever. Let It Be. And it's hilarious. The whole movie's about that. And he gets super famous for recording these Beatles songs that he's heard a million times, right? But the rest of the world's never heard them.
That's amazing. I definitely got to see that, because somebody else told me the same thing. That's a funny movie, and
you'll have a laugh.
Something you've never seen before. So yeah, definitely. So Michael, when the new single comes out, is there going to be a video for it? Are you planning on doing any new live shows?
Yes, we're planning on doing some live shows. We've got somebody working on some shows right now, and the video, we have somebody working on the video, and we have plans to shoot more stuff for the content of the video coming up within the next couple of weeks. We'll be.
And where's home base for you, Michael? I forgot to ask you.
We're in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
I was just going to ask you that. Where are you from?
Yeah, we're up here. It's finally
up there.
Yeah.
Canada is famous for Rush, Tryon, Helix, and now MJM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a book. It's funny. You got to see this, because you mentioned this is a book of the 80s metal scene. It's called Eve of Darkness. I know it's backwards, but So it's about the Toronto metal scene in the 80s.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it
wow.
starts off with let's see, there's Triumph,
Yeah.
there's Chilliwack, there's a singer from Iron Maiden, and then oh yeah, Motorhead, but just little stuff. And then right off it shows Rapid Tears, which was my original band, Electric Shockwave.
Oh wow,
So we were like
wow.
the
Oh,
big
wow.
thing during the 80s, right?
Wow, you're in
So
a book.
we're
Wow.
like the first feature in the whole book.
Yeah,
Yeah, it mentioned Rush, Triumph, and then us. And
it's amazing to think that somebody once thought of Triumph as a metal band. I mean, again, they have
Yeah, I
kind of
was just gonna say, I don't know if they're metal really.
elements, but
yeah, I know.
you know, that's why I named the show "This Is Metal." It's kind of simple, and
Right.
there is that kind of that question: what is metal? And I think from if you go decade to decade, it kind of changes because at one point in the '80s, Bon Jovi was
Yeah.
considered heavy metal
Yeah.
because he had long hair. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Not
And
metal.
yeah.
and Kiss were considered heavy metal too.
Yeah, again,
But
Kiss
Right.
is interesting because Kiss has a little bit of everything, kind of like the music you write. They have songs that definitely could be metal. Heaven's on Fire, Lick It Up. They got Beth and Forever, ballad type stuff.
yeah,
And they got even stuff on some of their earlier albums could really really be like considered really heavy metal.
I would call them traditional heavy metal from that age for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, but that's why they've had a 50-year career. Because they have everything from Lick It Up, like we said, Beth and Rock and Roll All Night. I mean, like, how many Kiss songs have you heard on the radio throughout your life?
lots. And
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah, yeah. I respect that band a lot. I've always been one of my favorites for what they've accomplished, and I always love their sound and their show, of course.
Yeah, I mean, they're all. I've always loved bands that put on shows like that. Kiss, Alice Cooper, a little more than just getting up on stage in your jeans and t-shirts. I want to be entertained, and I love the fact that they, even early on, everybody's telling, oh, you guys got pretty great music, but you really have to wear that makeup, and they stuck to their guns, and had a 50-year career, so I think they know a little better.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's funny. I think when they went unmasked, which everyone was curious to see what they look like, but once everybody knew what they looked like, the excitement was kind of gone
Yeah.
until they put the
Put it
makeup
back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden they were selling out big
Right.
arenas again.
I mean, I remember when they went in 1983 on MTV and they had the big unmasking. It was funny because everybody's wondering what they look like, but the minute they went to each guy's face, you kind of could tell, okay, that's Gene Simmons, that's Paul Stanley, even though you'd never seen them. But the mystery was finally over.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it was great talking to you guys. Before we wrap it up, Jammie, you want to tell people what you have going on with your bands, Bosstel and Praise the Fallen?
I'm busy, man, for sure. Well, this Friday, I'm Praise the Fallen's opening for Enough's Enough. As I told you, my old drummer left my band for Enough's Enough, and we're opening for him. And then I just found out that Tommy Skeoch from Tesla.
Oh yeah, he's in
Bad Marriage. And Bad Marriage is on that show too, man. I checked them out. Those guys are pretty cool.
Wow.
I got that going on Friday, but getting ready to shoot a music video for Bosstel. I'm Not Angry Anymore. I'm actually going to be shooting a music video the first weekend of August for Praise the Fallen too, for Changes, or single Changes. We've got a bunch of new material written. Bosstel's sitting on. I've written probably just within the past couple months, written 6 songs. Bosstel's sitting on now. Doing good, man. I'm getting ready to open.
On that. I always love hearing people staying busy. And Jammie, when you have the new about ready to drop the new video, let me know. We'll have you come back on as a guest yourself. This was really fun doing this tonight. We've never done this, and it makes me think if I ever need to do this. It was real fun, and I think we'll do it again. So thank you too, Michael, and I want to thank your publicist, Valorda PR. He knows who he is for setting this up, and we will continue to follow you, Michael, and urge everybody to check out on YouTube and you guys on Facebook. So thanks for doing this. I can't thank you enough. It was really great talking to both of you. And the interview we just did, I'm going to try to have it up by this weekend. So as soon as I know if it's going to be Saturday, Sunday, I'll let you guys know, and feel free to share it.
I'll be spreading the word about your music, Michael. It's really good.
Yeah. And real quick before we go, Jammie, I want to tell folks a funny story about setting this up. this morning, as I was posting that you were going to be the guest host, I posted a picture I got off your Facebook page, and you're telling me, hey, that's not me. That's the singer from Live. I guess all us bald guys look the same, but I thought that was a little funny, so I had to go and change the photo. But
yeah, that was. I saw Live Friday night. That's a picture from the show.
wow, okay. Well, thanks again, you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.
Nice meeting you, Jamie, and good seeing you again, Jay. Thanks
All right,
for the
man.
Michael, you're welcome back. Okay, take care. Bye bye.
pleasure. Thank you. Good night. Bye.
All right. Good night.
Good night.